Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Historical Humans podcast. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my fellow co-hosts, Colum Coleman and Aaron Gilpin. And today we are going to the Middle East and talking about religion. But we're not going to be talking about ones that you might think of or that might come to mind. No, no, no. This is older. So very much older.
Yeah, hi everybody. We're looking at something called Zoroastrianism here.
Yeah,
And
that's what.
if you thought religion was a topic we weren't going to cover on this show, you are wrong.
Thanks,
That's
Aaron.
yeah, my fault.
We are never doing this again. This is
Hey,
this is so
I hate to
complicated.
break it to you.
This
You
is,
should
this is
really check the ideas more, more closely.
I know what's there, but this is a really complicated topic. We're going to do our best to break it down for you.
This is what happens when we let Aaron suggest an idea.
This is what happens when you listen to him. But anyway, Zoroastrianism is an ancient
There's the
religion.
thumbnail.
It comes from what is now Iran before it was ever Iran.
Wound Iraq.
Yeah. And it was founded in the method that we understand it at some point prior to the 6th century BCE.
Damn,
And
that's old.
this is 2,600 years old at least. And that is at about the time where we get the prophet and religious reformer Zarathustra, who is kind of the founder of Zoroastrianism for practical purposes. The religion predates this man significantly, but he is the prophet.
Oh no, he is the voice, he is the spoken head.
He is their prophet. Yeah.
He's a reformer then.
Wait.
Yeah, that's that. Yep, he's a
Prophet,
reformer.
what about the losses?
Why is that a joke, dude?
Oh, there's no losses.
Yeah, but we haven't even gotten into money.
But we will.
Was just through a coin.
I hope not. I hope not. Yeah. So we have Zoroastrianism. We have this super old religion, and like all religions, we need a god. And for Zoroastrianism, the god in question is Ahura Mazda, which is what Zarathustra begins his life out as a priest. He's a priest of this god, and he decides to make some changes.
So what is he, just like a fire god?
So Ahura Mazda is essentially the concept of good, creation, life. This is the Zoroastrian religion we'll get into near, I think, the end of this, where we get into some of the practices a bit more. This is based on this, almost yin-yang principle of good versus evil, where good must necessarily triumph at all times. He doesn't have to win initially, but he must always win in the long run.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how their religion is set up, of good and bad in this sort of endless cycle. But yeah, we get this change, this reform, from Zarathustra while he's living somewhere in eastern Iran prior to this massive Persian unification under Cyrus II. And Cyrus II is really where you see Persia become the empire that we all see in our history books.
Oh, so Cyrus the Great.
Yeah, Cyrus the Great. This is the unification of Persia. Is this man?
Okay.
Zoroastrianism and Zarathustra predate that, which is how incredibly old they are. He's in fact old enough where it's believed that he may have been tied to a cause of a Persian civil war.
I'm a man after my own heart. Oh no.
Oh, so this man caused his own 30 years war in Iran.
Yeah, this man caused a major. So there in the year 522, which is late 6th century, the Persian king Darius I is dead. And there's a major push for the throne of Persia. I'm sorry, Cyrus is dead, and there's a push between Darius I and a man who is known to history as Gaumata the Magician.
What the
I
fuck?
love it. I'm sold. I'm hooked.
Now,
This sounds like a
Gaumata
fucking
the
Yu-Gi-Oh plot line.
Yes, I summon Gaumata the Magician in attack position.
Now, what do you think he did to get the name Magician? Do you think he just did a bunch of optical tricks, or do you think he actually performed like miracles?
So I know the religious class is like supposed to be called the Magi, like the priesthood.
He was. Gaumata the Magician was known as the Magician because he was invested very highly and had a very high rank of the Zoroastrian priesthood.
Oh.
This was a high-ranking Zoroastrian priest.
So he tried to turn the entire empire into a theocracy.
It already was. He just wanted to rule it from his point of view. The Persians had state-sponsored temples and
Is this what the Pope was really trying?
Yes.
The papacy?
Yes. This is exactly what the Pope wanted.
Oh my god.
And the reason everyone believes Gaumata the Magician to be Zoroastrian is, one, his official title is magician, so he is a wise man of a religion. And two, during the war with Darius, he had a very prolific habit, almost an obsession, with annihilating the altars and temples of these traditional Persian gods.
Yeah, that'll do it.
These were the deities that Cyrus II and his ancestors worshipped. These were the deities of the Persian unification. This was part of the Persian national identity. This was the state-sponsored religion.
And this is what Zoroaster was doing.
No, this is what Gaumata the Magician, Zoroaster's disciple, was doing.
Okay. This would like be something like if like John the Armenian started going smashing a bunch of pagan shrines.
Yeah. This is Saint Peter declares himself Emperor of Rome. attempts to take the throne.
Hold on. Hey, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. This is something like that.
I played enough of Europa Universalis 4 to know where this is going.
I really like to highlight this point, though, in that as much as we like to think we live in modern times, there is historical precedent for literally everything. Humans have not changed. How much do I have to keep emphasizing this? They wear different hats.
You're going to have to keep telling that till you die. Now, unfortunately for Zoroaster and or for the Zoroastrians here and, all that good stuff, Gaumata loses the war.
Oof.
There's a reason why Darius has a number next to his name and Gaumata doesn't.
True.
And Darius and his successors kind of take things personally with the whole temple destruction.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Where the Persian Empire under Cyrus II had been pretty tolerant of Zoroastrianism, it suddenly becomes very not.
Yeah, because usually like their whole shtick was, hey, you get to keep your religion here to bother you.
Yeah. Except when that religion launches a theocratic rebellion.
It always ties back to religious extremism, always pushes the scales.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's all about political power, and at the end of the day, the religion's always the excuse.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
Speaking of religious excuse, Zoroastrianism at this time had some pretty major reach, because in addition to converting a heir to the throne of Persia, Zarathustra, who got a bonus name that is what we know him by most. You've heard me say it probably a few times on this podcast as a little bit of a spoiler here. He got a Greek name called Zoroaster.
Oh,
and The religion became known as Zoroastrianism, being basically named for the Greek name of him.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. This fun. It's a lovely little exonym from the Greeks. It's why
Like
it's why like Egypt is known as Egypt and not the Egyptian word for Egypt.
there's like was it? Oh, I think it starts with an M.
Ooh, we got Aaron lost in thought. This is good.
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
This
We can
this will
milk
be
this for
good.
hours.
It's gonna cook.
Just zoom in on his face. Just zoom on his face and say human.
No, I think I want to say, or maybe it starts with a K. I'm thinking
Yeah, I think
kinetic.
it's like chemia or something. But
I've seen it before. I know I have.
yeah,
It.
But
but yeah. Anyway, Zoroastrianism is finding traction among the Greeks, namely everyone's least favorite math teacher.
oh no,
Uh,
not the man from high school.
yeah, Pythagoras of Samos, who
Oh.
developed the
Oh,
Pythagorean theorem about all those stupid triangles you had to learn about.
oh God. So
The,
these people were contemporaries. That's how old
They
this
were
shit is.
they were contemporaries, and during Pythagoras's world tour, where he was developing his mathematical principles and trying to bring essentially ideas from the rest of the world back to Greece with him, one of those ideas he brings is Zoroastrianism.
oh my god. So not only does he impact our daily lives as archaeologists, because
Yeah,
we have to do the Pythagoras theorem to set up our excavation units,
yeah,
but
everything.
he was also a religious zealot, like preaching the word, the good
Yeah,
word.
he gets back to Greece, and one thing the Greeks love is dualism, good and evil, an endless recurring cycle, and Zoroastrianism has that.
Mm.
And so he takes that back with him, opens up opens up a little cult dedicated to himself, and preaches both the mathematics and some of the Zoroastrian dualism.
God, a
Ooh.
math cult? I never thought
Yep.
cults could sound
Yeah,
nerdy.
it's a math cult because fun fact, um, everything is mathematics, and mathematics can be religion. Everything can be religion.
Praying to
It
numbers,
was
praying to a squared plus b
yeah,
squared.
Talk about a bunch of imaginary numbers.
yeah, it was a level of cult personality. And the thing is, this cult by Pythagoras here, this was not a minor cult. This cult was very influential in its time, to the point where I believe Aristotle is understood to have alluded to it and its Zoroastrian teachings on more than one occasion.
I can actually see this being like part of the basis of Platonic teachings.
Yep. Because Pythagoras predates Plato, he predates Aristotle, he predates Socrates. And
If he even
Aristotle
existed.
talk Aristotle talks about his cult. It gets referenced. It's like this is the Zoroastrianism has a very politically powerful reach
Like
during the
any
sixth
religion.
century. It is influencing the foreign visitors. It is influencing princes of Persia. It is this religion is powerful, and part of that is because it's already entrenched.
Mhm.
Zoroastrianism is believed to the religion that it is now comes from Zoroaster in the 6th century BC, but it's believed to date back all the way to about 2000 BC. So it's about a 4,000-year-old religion. So this religion was very well entrenched. This is, you know, this is medieval Christianity level of entrenchment into its part of society.
Jeez.
It's
So
interesting,
that's that old.
and
Like,
maybe my question is: obviously, this is one of the first, and I don't think we've necessarily touched on this as much, but it's one of the first monotheistic religions. What are some of the older religions that would be more recognizable?
Honestly, honestly, this is one of the first monotheistic religions.
But is this like one of the oldest known religions? I know there's
This,
spirituality and other practices, but as like a
on,
confirmed structured thing.
Like an
honestly,
organized religion.
Yeah.
so with that, actually, there is the god of the Zoroastrians, uh, is Ahura Mazda, and that deity is also apparent in both, I believe, certain Indian and Persian religions that predate Zoroastrianism as we understand it.
Mhm.
So the guy was a part of a pantheon
He
prior.
was he was part of a pantheon prior. The Zoroastrians only worshipped this one god of that pantheon.
Oh, so this is
And
like a cult of like Poseidon becoming the
yeah,
preliminary religion.
becoming its breaking off and becoming its own god that says, no, Ahura Mazda is the god. Uh, Everyone else is just archangels.
Interesting.
Or saints, essentially.
Yeah, is because don't get me wrong, Zoroastrianism has a whole like array of cosmic beings and spirits of good and evil, which Christianity does too. You've got demons, you've got Michael and Gabriel. Those are not gods, but they are powerful spiritual beings. There's a lot of stuff that goes on between Zoroastrianism and most other monotheistic religions.
I mean, I guess because it's just so old, it's gonna be there. It's
Yeah,
gonna like you just can't.
yeah, you
You
just
like
can't.
it's like how today Christianity is rooted in a lot of stuff already.
Yeah, and yeah, yeah, no, yeah. That's basically it. Just bleeds into society, and unfortunately, all the religious texts that predate Zoroaster and all that, those have been lost to time. The
Okay.
oldest texts we have are his reformations.
Well, I guess it makes sense when one of your disciples goes around burning things.
Yeah, yeah, and so
Yikes.
so the first 1400 years are shrouded in mystery a little bit, but the last 2600 are pretty solid.
We're lucky we even have that. Jesus Christ.
So very much is like one of the oldest organized religions.
Yeah,
That's
this is extremely old. It emerges out of the slightly older, and I say slightly because we're using a time scale of thousands of years at this point. Um, per Persian Indian pantheon that is existing around the region, because it does take one of their gods and basically says this is the only one who is actually
It's, they
God.
also do have the concept of reincarnation as well.
Yeah, yeah. There's gonna be more on that later. Um, Basically, yeah, they're all there, and so the first official record of recognition, basically the first time someone who isn't Zoroastrian is writing about the Zoroastrians being somewhere, comes from a few hundred years after Zoroaster himself. It comes from the 4th century BC, uh, where we find a Zoroastrian religious calendar in use at the city of Nisa.
Nisa?
Yep, Nisa. Say that how you want.
Nissa? Nissa?
Nisa.
Nisa,
Nisa.
Nisa.
Nisa. Nisa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. I'm American. I'm going to put the emphasis on the first vowel I can find.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's also right at this time, the whole reason it comes up is because Alexander the Great is
Oh,
at uh is at Nissa here. And
that's right.
the cultural practices are getting pushed out in favor of Hellenic stuff. So there's a note being made that we have to get rid of this really weird calendar that these Zoroastrians worship to put in our Greek calendar. Isn't that annoying, guys? when other people already have a culture.
I know, especially when we're replacing it with Zeus and the Greek pantheon.
Yeah,
Priorities, man. Mount Olympus trumps all.
yeah.
Could they
Oh
be
yeah,
like the Egyptians and make a Mon Zeus?
yeah. No, the Greeks. The Greeks push in their Hellenism, but the Zoroastrians bide their time. They are not one of those religions that is proliferating for the sake of like world domination.
Hmm.
They don't have this push to be the only religion on earth. Sometimes they make little pushes to become the dominant religion in a region, but there's not this, convert the world mandate, at least not one that seemed to come up in anything that I could find concretely.
Okay.
So, you know,
I
brownie
mean, that's a
points right
little wrong for once.
there. Yeah, yeah, for once. Now, Zoroastrian really gets Zoroastrianism really gets going under what is known as the Sasanian dynasty, uh, which is this period of time that appears to be about from 224 BC to 651 CE. These are the people that are making the Romans' lives hell.
Mm, yeah.
Because 100 years after Alexander the Great, we come upon two very influential uh, practitioners of this religion, two very influential priests, known as Carter and Tanser.
Carter?
Yep, Karter. He's Carter.
That's a hell of a letdown.
Yep, yep. Now, their official title is Irpats, which are sort of these theologians who basically work in the courts of the Persian, kings and emperors.
Are you telling me this
And
is a court sorcerer?
yes, they're court sorcerers because
I fucking love it.
Persia remains a multi-ethnic, multi-religious state at this time. And so they're bringing in all the priests from all the different gods and pantheons that are worshipped so that they can ensure that none of those gods are mad at them, that all those gods will be on their side if they need to do something.
Their own, like their little own Pax Deorum.
Yeah. Now, one of the fun things of this is Tansar is most active under the founder of this dynasty, a man named Ardasir. And he's kind of buddies up to him right at the start and gets Zoroastrianism in the door as this idea of no, 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 we're a very important religion. Our spiritual support is guaranteeing your family's success.
Why does it give off like door-to-door salesman vibes?
Because that's effectively what these people were. If you're dismissed from a court, you just wander to the next court of the next highest ranking nobleman and pursue your sell your trade there. These people are traveling mountebanks.
Oh my God.
That's kind of their job. If you are not welcome in a court, you go find a court that doesn't have an erpat of your religion and convince them that they need one.
Well, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah. And that is what Tansir did for them. And then Carter comes in and he's around for Ardasir, but under Ardasir's successors, namely Shapir the First, he kicks off, and he's the man who's like Irpat to like 10 kings.
So he's like a slot.
Well, no, he just keeps outliving them because these kings all have like reigns of less than a decade.
Oh, so they all just keep dying after like 10 years. Okay.
Yeah, our Ardasir has a pretty prosperous reign, and though and so like by the time he's dead, all his successors are like 50,
Yeah.
so they don't really live too long. And this is where Zoroastrianism kind of takes its little turn into the dark side, because it turns out that having political power isn't very good for this religion. it gets a lot of spread, it gets a lot of conversion, it gets a lot of prominence and dedications. But it also starts targeting other startups. um, Carter and Tanser here see to the imprisonment and possible murder by neglect of another prophet, a man by the name of Mani, who is the founder of,
Python?
yeah, no, not that one. Mani, he's the founder of what's known as Manichaeism, which is a dualistic Persian religion that began in the 3rd century CE. And the Zoroastrians here, decide that the best response to this new religion on the block is they looked over at Rome and saw what Christianity was doing to it, and decided, no, we're not having that. Let's just throw him in jail and let him starve to death.
Fair.
So they imprison and have him just quietly killed so that Zoroastrianism can continue to flourish and expand unchallenged. They crush this new religion in the cradle.
I see.
Yeah, they basically prevent it from taking strong roots in a lot of communities, and push it out in favor of them. They also begin to persecute the non-Zoroastrian cults and religions.
This is just a guidebook of all the things you shouldn't do when you take power as the preeminent religion.
Yep. Yeah. And
But nobody will care,
things go great from this is about this
unfortunately.
the Sasanians are about an 800-year period where everything goes right for Zoroastrianism, and they really start forgetting what it's like to not have power.
Of course, once you get power, you forget what it's like to not have power
They,
until you
they
lose
just
it.
go mad with it real fast.
Yep. To the point where their religion, their religious promise starts going into decline under the rule of a king known as Khosrau II, who takes the throne in 591 CE and dies in 628. And this is because Khosrau's political marriage to his wife means that he is marrying outside of the main Persian religions. He marries a Christian.
Oh no.
Which is a persecuted religious minority by the Zoroastrians. And this causes them to lose a ton of favor in the court, because at this point, they have to choose between being bad people who are mad with power and playing ball with the wife of the king.
Yikes.
And guess which one they chose? Being mad with power.
I just feel like unrestricted power is a very corrupting influence.
It always is. It just always is.
I know that's controversial, but I really, truly
Maybe
think
that's why you should always execute kings.
Yeah.
the king shall swing.
Yeah. And what this means is that Khosrau kind of quietly makes it a policy to sort of back off on the religious persecution of minorities. I didn't see anything where there's a lot of big laws and acts packed guaranteeing, religious rights and freedoms, but it's more of a quietly sending memos to all his people saying, hey, just don't enforce one religion on them. Leave them alone. We've got other things to worry about. And he is kind of right, because they do have other things to worry about. Because 7 years after the death of Khosrau II, the Sassanid dynasty is effectively overthrown. They continue on to 651, but in 635 there's a battle called the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah. And I have no way to know if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize. But this is a major battle that sees Islam push into the Persian Empire.
Oh, is this the start of the intermezzo period?
Yeah, this is effect. Yeah, Al Qadisiyah is effectively the Islamic overthrow of Persia. That's that. After that battle, it's kind of understood the Sassanids are on the out, and that Islam, not Zoroastrianism, is the new religion of this land, which is fun. And initially, Islam is very tolerant of Zoroastrianism,
Oh well.
like surprisingly so. But the Zoroastrians make the same mistake they did with Gaumata the magician,
Oh.
in that someone refuses to leave well enough alone. And in short time, there's a dispute over conversion tactics, during which the Zoroastrians make the argument that, well, there is no mandate to convert. There sure are a lot of restrictions on not converting, and it certainly seems like if we want to keep our livelihoods, we kind of have to. To which the Muslims just kind of shrug and say, too bad, that's the way things are. And the Zoroastrians start picking up knives.
Yikes.
So they just start assassinating people?
There's a full-on rebellion.
Oh.
And this rebellion brings major persecution down from the Muslims onto the Zoroastrians. The Muslims refer to the Zoroastrians here as the Gabars. So there's references to Gabar uprisings. That's the Zoroastrians.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
Those are the Zoroastrians. There are references in the history. So they're kind of just. It doesn't appear to be a full coordinated rebellion of all Zoroastrians onto me. I'm this religious leader. Let's be a very violent version of Gandhi. No, it's more localized. It's one city flares up, gets put down. Another province goes off, it gets put down, and each time the noose is tightened.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, to the point where about 300 years in the 10th century, there's a mass emigration of Zoroastrians across the border into India.
Oh.
Because it's almost leave or die in most places.
Yeah.
Do we ever see any commingling between Zoroastrians and Hindus? Or Buddhists? Is there any bleed over between the two?
I would imagine.
They do coexist quite peacefully until the 18th century. There seems to be peaceful coexistence for the most part in India from the 10th to 18th centuries.
Interesting.
Some Zoroastrians refuse to leave. These Zoroastrians, hold out in pockets, namely in places called Parsis, Yads, and Kerman, were the main communities that survived. But most flee across the border into India. And specifically, they're moving to Gujarat, India, which is, I believe, where Mumbai is now.
Oh, okay.
And the prominence of Mumbai, or as it will be known during the time periods we'll be talking about, Bombay, kind of dictates the fortunes of the Zoroastrians. For once, actually, in kind of a good way, but that's for later. Because what's funnily happens enough is there's almost a religious schism at this point for Zoroastrianism, because from the 10th to 15th century, there's no contact between the sects in Iran and the sects in India.
So there's a religious diversion?
Yeah, the Persian pockets lose all contact with the ones in India, and the ones in India lose all contact with the ones in Persia.
Interesting.
until the year 1477, in which communication resumes and it flourishes until 1768. And there's almost this little mini renaissance of religious discourse between the two groups, where they discover that despite sending 500 years apart, the minor differences that have arisen in practice and culture and language aren't enough for them to stop recognizing each other as brothers.
Mm.
And they reunify.
Oh, that's wholesome. That's wholesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Meanwhile, Christianity is arguing over one line of a religious text and killing each other in 6 different ways.
Look, every religion has their own flaws and their own downsides. Not everyone can love thy neighbor or love their brothers.
Yep. Yeah. Meanwhile, the
Some of them
Zoroastrians
were-
over here are going, holy shit, the guys that left made it. Holy shit, the guys that stayed behind survived. We did it, everybody. We did it.
I like to imagine, and I would hope that maybe it wasn't so straightforward, that it was maybe like, oh yeah, we believe in this man. We also believe in this man. Brother!
Ahura Mazda was a god in both India and Persia. They could fit in both societies, and they just both found each other again. Go, wait a minute, you only worship Ahura Mazda? We only worship Ahura Mazda.
Brother!
It's like, on 3, state your prophet. 1, 2, 3, Zoroaster.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that time we tried to conquer everything with Persia? Oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah, it's pretty funny. However, there's a major change in 1768, which is a very fateful year for India.
Oh,
Because it marks the
right.
arrival it marks the arrival of what the Europeans call civilization.
Oh no. Oh no, the
Wait.
British.
4, 5, 6, 7.
Or the Dutch, which is
Yeah.
worse.
It is the British. Hail Britannia comes to the shores of India.
Oh, they have come to bring freedom. And
It's like when the Fire Nation
civilization.
attacked.
Oh no, they are the Fire Nation.
Yeah, the British, when they kind of pop in here in 1768 and decide that a spot of tea means they're staying forever, the Zoroastrians in India take huge advantage of this. And they make this major shift. They're farmers. They have been farmers for the last 700 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they switch over to merchants and industrialists, because the British are primarily concerned with controlling this massive Hindu population. And so they're more than willing to outsource a lot of the money making and a lot of the, shall we say, goods transportation from India to Britain, or at least India to the British ports, to this strange little religious minority that at the very least are understandable, because they worship one god too.
Yeah.
It's the wrong god, but it's
Close
closer
enough.
It's closer than whatever is happening with the Hindu pantheon.
Oh my god.
It's a wild story. They're great.
I just imagine that the British chappie came up and, saw Vishnu, with the horn, or with the
Elephant?
With the 1,000 hands.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And just all the different interpretations of the Hindu gods, and goes, and what do you believe in? And he goes, oh, we have our one god. And he goes, I like you. There's something about you I like. And that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, he represents
keep
all
it
good in
simple.
creation. He constantly fights back against the force of evil from the nether realm. Really? We have diet Christians over here. We'll persecute them later.
Yeah, exactly. We'll persecute them later. I like that.
Yeah.
That's usually how it goes.
Additionally, playing into the Zoroastrian thing is the Zoroastrians have survived by adapting to the cultures around them. They have been a religious minority in their society for the last 700 years. So they're no longer, they stopped being all haughty and oppressive. They're back to that whole, we've got to work with what's around us to survive. So they're also much more willing than most of the people in India to start adopting British customs.
Hmm.
They're willing to look and act and sound like the British, which makes the British much more comfortable giving them money.
I mean, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it, especially when you're
Yeah.
fighting for survival. But,
Yep.
I just don't like them talking with the other chaps, having a spot of tea just so they could survive.
And this sees a large Zoroastrian population more or less just come to inhabit Mumbai. And they kind of take over Bombay there for a little bit as all these farmers come in from the hinterland and just sort of go, yeah, we'll bring you stuff. Sure. How much money are they giving us for this? Holy shit.
Yeah. How many zeros are you adding to the end of that
Yeah.
list?
Yeah. It's like, and that's in that's in that's yeah, that's in okay, we can work with you guys. Sure, sure. Yeah, we definitely know what we're doing. They they come, and this is honestly one of the very few examples of the British presence being good for a population. It's not good for the population of India as a whole,
Uh,
but it is good for the Zoroastrians.
What's even more impressive in my mind is not only is it beneficial for a population, but it's beneficial for a minority population.
Yeah. And that is because this minority is able to step in and basically say, hey, you're putting the boot on these guys over here, right? Well, would you like some help with that?
um,
You're gonna
They
need a
don't get too
local
involved.
guide.
They don't get too involved in like the actual British oppression. The British do that themselves.
Yeah, and they're more than
But
capable.
but basically they see new economic opportunity in India for someone who is not Hindu and can work with the British. And so they're able to fill a new, very specific niche that comes to exist. Because the British are very concerned with, you know, Hindu power being a form of resistance to them. Because cough, cough, it will be.
Naturally.
You know, and so well, the British are super concerned about some sort of militant Gandhi rising from the heartland of India. They're not concerned about these Zoroastrians forming any sort of concerted rebellion because they're too small to matter,
yeah.
and that that makes all the difference for them. Suddenly, they're a valued economic partner, and that's going to be about where our history of Zoroastrianism ends because we've talked a lot about them. We've hinted at kind of what their religion is, but we haven't talked about throughout all this history, all these 4,000 years of history, what exactly is Zoroastrian? What exactly are these people worshiping?
Right.
Because it's it's very interesting. It has a lot of words that I did not think I would ever see again after leaving Sunday school. So here we go. This is a fun bit. So they are the first monotheistic religion in history. They hold that title. And what that means is they are the first religion to worship a single primary deity.
Mhm.
And we're going to see the definition of monotheism get challenged constantly throughout this segment because on the basic level of monotheism, on the basic definition, is there is one spiritual power. That spiritual power is the supreme spiritual power. It has one form and is one being. And there is nothing else that is worshipped or in existence. That's like the strict definition of monotheism. No monotheistic religion is monotheistic by that definition.
Yeah. Yeah. Why would
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. So, there's always that constant push from different points to qualify or disqualify certain religions as monotheistic. But for our purposes today, Zoroastrianism is the oldest monotheistic religion. It's so old, in fact, that it actually has traceable influences on the Abrahamic religions, and that's Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Mhm.
So much so that Zoroaster is considered a proto-Abrahamic prophet
Really?
in the religious canons for a number of sects of these religions, a number of religious sects here. They regard him as one of the pre as one of the like proto prophets. Because fun fact, uh here, Muhammad, Jesus, and Moses are not the one and done prophets for the Abrahamic religions. They are the successors of a long line of people coming from the deserts and proclaiming God.
Right.
The thing with
Like a bunch of doom, like a like
yeah,
what are they called? Doom and gloom preachers, something like that. Apocalyptic preachers.
yeah. So fire and brimstone.
People went out to the desert, went crazy, came back.
Yeah, and the you know the the distinction along the Abrahamic religions is usually which prophet is the correct prophet, who got the definition of God the most correct.
Mhm.
And Zoroaster is in that lineup of people who kind of understood what God was, but didn't get it right enough for their version to be the version we're worshiping. That's kind of how these Abrahamic religions view Zoroaster, and thus Zoroastrianism is a proto-Abrahamic religion. But good luck getting your average priest to recognize that.
Right, yeah.
This is these are esoteric decrees of religious canon from people who have been dead for centuries, who were more or less cleaning up the timeline of how exactly did we get to our version of God and what is he. But
Well, didn't you
yeah,
know our version of God is the right one? There is only one right one,
yeah,
as is told in the religious texts that I read.
yeah, and hence all violence, all religious
Is
violence ever.
justified. Yeah, people tend to forget that if you get to the point where you're justifying violence, you might
Yeah,
So
want
wait,
to
what
rethink
you're
it.
saying is that monotheism is the problem.
not necess-
No,
not
it's just
necessarily. Uh, Giving religions political power appears to be the problem, at least in Zoroastrianism's case,
Well, that's why
because
we should have a separation.
when they don't have religious political power, they're coexisting pretty fine with basically everyone around them. But the two times they either have political power or make a push for it, things get bloody quickly.
The oppressor off or the oppressee often becomes the oppressor as soon as they gain power. They go, you know what that other person did to me, I think let's give it a test run. Let's see how it
it doesn't
goes.
always happen that way though.
Uh,
But it does happen. That that being said.
yeah, Gaumata the magician and Artisir really proved that no, that political power is the ultimate corruption. given given what happens to Zoroastrianism when these men start trying to proclaim it politically.
So there should be a separation between church and state, but I know that's now newly
Yeah.
Here we go.
controversial again.
Welcome to America, everybody. Moving on. Moving on. So Zoroastrianism is divided between two sets of principles. There's the monotheistic principles and the dualistic principles. And the monotheistic principles are what get them kind of in the proto-Abrahamic prophet range. And the dualistic principles are what gets them into Greek philosophy with Pythagoras and Aristotle. The monotheism is the whole worship of Ahura Mazda, a single deity representing creation and morality. And the thing with Zoroastrianism is it's not as much of a hard line about worshiping only Ahura Mazda as, say, Christianity gets with Jehovah, or you know, the you know Muslims and everything else that goes on there with,
Yeah.
they're not as insistent on this one and done thing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I can't get what you're putting in there.
yeah, yeah. They will, they will not do what Judea does, which is go to war over the concept of making an offering to literally anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have that. It's not as much of a hard line about them. They're insistent that no, Ahura Mazda is the one god of creation and morality. All things are under Ahura Mazda, and so you're just worshiping a new aspect of it. You have a new name and a new aspect for some embodiment of Ahura Mazda, and they just move on with their day. um, but Ahura Mazda is, by the Zoroastrian definition, the one true God, and under him, or part of him, depending on who you ask, is a diverse web of spirits, entity, and what are called joint divine material beings that are beneath him and a part of him. And by joint divine material beings, we mean both demigods and prophets.
It's kind of like a way of saying like he's the force in a way.
Yeah, it's yeah, there's the Holy Spirit, and then there's also, the idea of recognizing divinity within, you know, various religiously significant people, various saints, various martyrs, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They are both material in that they are and were human beings, and divine in that whatever they did, you know, the Spirit of God moved through them. And thus they have that bit of divinity. And what's fun is that where Ahura Mazda is the good and the creation,
Yeah.
everything else, all these spirits, all these divine material beings, all these entities, they are both good and bad. They are both they can be positive influences on the world. They can be negative influences on the world.
So that's kind of like how it can exist with other
Yeah,
religions.
yeah, and but also just
So
the
like
idea
they
that,
can that's what it's their way of saying this is how we can respect you.
yeah, and there's also that bit there of like Ahura Mazda is all good in all creation, yet all these other things that get acknowledged under Ahura Mazda might not be. There might be a river spirit that causes a massive flood that destroys your village. There might be a rain spirit that makes all your crops grow extra good this year. They're all there wrapped up under Ahura Mazda. There's not so much this
Single entity.
delineation of, yeah, there's not this delineation that we see in like Christianity of like there is God
It's
and
more
all that
Holy
serve him.
Spirit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's
Oh
it's more
wow.
it's more ambiguous. Yeah, it's ambiguous. Where it's like there's no division of like here's God and all who serve him who are all good all the time, and
Yeah.
here's the devil and all who serve him who are all evil all the time.
Okay, I see.
No,
Yeah, that kind of makes more sense to me.
they're both blended together. There is no two massive armies arrayed at each other at all times. No,
Yeah.
the river spirit and the sky spirit, they can flood your village. They can give you plentiful crops. They're not gods. They don't get worshipped on the same level as him. They don't even really get direct worship a lot of the time. But they're all a part of Ahura Mazda's plan of ultimate good.
Hmm.
Because of that's going to bring us to the dualism principles. These are the things the Greeks liked.
Yeah.
Dualism is the idea that the world is balanced between good and evil. There are two polar opposites that wrestle with each other for control and domination of the world. And usually this is seen as two deities, creation and destruction, fighting it out.
Yeah. Good
Good and
versus
evil.
evil. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we get the concept.
This is where we get the concept because
Instead of like a yin and yang thing, it's
yeah,
straight up just like good and evil.
it's good and evil. It's good and evil, creation and destruction. And fun fact, Ahura Mazda has his own version of the devil. For he is
So,
for he is locked in constant he is locked in a constant cycle of creation and destruction with his evil opposite, Ahriman. Now,
that's
Ahriman,
like a Digimon.
yep, yep. Now, Ahriman is
Armand
a
Digivolve
yep.
2.
Ahriman is a very powerful spirit whose focus on the world is primarily negative,
Yeah.
where Aramazda is everything and thus ultimately good and creative. Ahriman is the embodiment of all the destruction and wickedness that can come from something that encompasses all things. Ahriman is innately weaker than Ahura Mazda, and the two of them are in this endless perpetual cycle where evil will rise up to oppose good, and good will either through enduring the evil or through just outright opposing it
Mhm.
destroy said evil.
It's a nice way to look at life too.
I mean, at least there's a positive outcome, and it's not like a fatalistic endpoint. But
Yep.
Like
No.
if it's not the good, if it's not good, it's not the
Yep.
end.
yeah,
Yep. And the yeah, if it's not good, it's not the end. But the power of Ahura Mazda's victory does not lie in Ahura Mazda himself. No, Ahura Mazda needs you for this spiritual battle.
oh no, the propaganda.
Yeah.
Hermada needs you to join the war effort.
Yeah.
Only you can prevent evil.
Yeah. Because
Is Smokey
this
the Bear our
No.
modern
yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
our
On,
Mazda?
it's
only you can stop Ahriman.
it's the whole concept of what American Olympus is that the name of it, where the gods just shift their center of focus, and now,
Oh yeah, and like
Yep.
Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the reason for this is Ahura Mazda triumphs through people acting through their free will. You have a choice, and it's on you to make the choice that will help Ahura Mazda triumph. You can make the choice that helps Ahriman, but remember, Ahriman's victories are fleeting, whereas Ahura Mazda's last forever. And so people are encouraged to think, speak,
So
and do
it's
good.
in a way, instead of saying chaos is the constant state,
Yeah,
it's order or at
yeah,
least good.
yeah. It is. Yeah,
Good
that,
is the
yeah.
constant state.
It's yeah. It's not order. It's creation, life, and morality. It's the idea of it's this idea of good is the natural state of the universe.
Okay, I
And
like that idea actually.
yeah, and it's on you to choose good. You are what is deciding whether today is a victory for Ahura Mazda or not. And that is, that it says it's a very self-empowering principle. And what's interesting with this dualism is this does not extend to was usually seen as dualism, which is the material self and the spiritual self being two separate things that are, you know, that are in constant turmoil with the Christian version of it being the material self is weak and corrupt and must be purified into the spiritual self. No, 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 no. Not in Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, your body was a creation. And
Right.
thus, it is as much a weapon for good in the hands of Ahura Mazda as your spirit is. You fight as one with your material being and your spiritual being.
Mhm.
That distinction between them as two separate entities, one good, one bad, does not really exist for Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
The soul doesn't struggle against the body. The soul uses the body to struggle against Ahriman.
Ah,
everything's
I
against
do like this
Saruman.
one.
Yes. Who now has the power to stand against the might of both Isengard and Mordor?
Aruman.
I thought it was Saruman.
Well, that's who Aruman digivolves into.
Oh my God! Saruman's the evolution.
We have never committed this much blasphemy in one video.
I was so excited for that one. I'm so glad I got
wish
set
we
up
had
for
merch because that would be the perfect merch thing, I think.
that. Aruman digivolves to Saruman.
Sir Christopher Lee will come back from the grave and kill us.
Will be a hell of a story.
It would be Mazda coming back embodying Christopher Lee as their vessel.
Because my pun was just that sacrilege.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Now, in the worship here of Ahura Mazda, we come across what is an ancient Zoroastrian symbol called the Faravahar. And this is an interesting sigil here. Because it's pretty complicated. So this is a very intricate, very ancient emblem. It's a bearded man with his arm extended outward over a pair of spread wings that form a circle of eternity around him. And so it's this, you see this bearded, almost Babylonian-looking dude reaching out towards you, while a pair of wings arise around him, just massive, like hawk wings. It's a pretty interesting symbol. I know we can't really give you visuals on the podcast to show it to you, but if you look up the Faravahar, it's a very intricate religious symbol.
I would like to one day, like, eventually read that holy, like the holy text for it. Like, I eventually want to get through. Like, I still have to get through all the books of the Bible, though.
Yeah, good luck with that, Aaron.
Yeah, no.
Good luck with that.
It's my own little personal endeavor.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm doing book by book and like at different points.
So what we need you to do is once you finish your reading of all these religious texts, you need to create a tier list and write every single religious text.
Yeah.
Oh no, I gotta do like a fucking meme tier list essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Which one is S tier? Which no, break it down book by book from each like religious text too.
The Book of John is more B tier in my mind.
Oh god, doing the tier ranking.
No,
list.
actually, in the old one of the in the 1400s edition, it's actually this phrase, and I actually like it a little bit better.
The Zoroastrian text is S tier because of the symbology involved and the fact of the duality.
Tell you what, we ever get to 100,000, I'll do it.
Oh,
100,000 subscribers, I'll do it.
Put 2 Corinthians in A tier here because I'm pretty sure there's at least one passage here about gaslighting people, and I love that.
I'll tell you what, I'll start it if we ever get to 10,000. That's when I'll start actually start going through all the books.
It'll give you enough time to get through, if we ever do reach 100K.
Yeah, exactly. Like each time we go up 1,000 or like up 10,000, I'll just like do another book.
All right.
Yeah, oh, that's only $10. There's a lot more, but like
all of the religious texts, Aaron, every single one.
But that's a lot of reading, and I'm too ADHD.
Yeah, we're gonna make you do each version too.
Oh my god,
King
this is gonna be a fucking book
James.
report.
Yes, you could do the audiobooks if you really choose.
But I can barely do damn thesis. If you this was a bad idea.
Yeah, well, yeah. Welcome to
Academic
hell, the cage we make for ourselves.
But talk about good ideas. Let's circle back to some Zoroastrian.
Circling back. Yeah, so yeah, with the Faravahar here, what makes it a pretty standout symbol too is not just its complexity, but a lot of monotheistic religions, their symbology is simplistic geometry. Look at the Christian cross. It's a giant letter T. And we do lots. Sometimes we put a little circle behind it. Sometimes we add extra bars onto the cross, but it's simplistic geometry at the end of the day. This is not that. This is borderline photorealistic depictions of human beings and animal parts.
Oof. They're very grotesque.
Their wings. Their wings. You never seen a chicken before?
You know who else has wings? The devil.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Yeah. I was gonna go with flamingos, but sure.
Oh, I forgot about flamingos.
Flamingos are the devil. So are
Honestly, I feel like
penguins.
penguins. What do the
Flamingos
penguins
do
ever
have
do?
Sith eyes, but on the subject of Zoroastrianism, fire and water. Not quite Targaryen, but we'll take it.
So are they the waterbenders or are they the firebenders?
A bit of both, actually. Fire and water are purifying forces in Zoroastrianism, and the places of worship, especially in ancient times, were known as fire temples, and they
Oh,
were
right,
called,
right. The eternal flame, right?
they were called this because their altar was a massive bonfire that had to be kept going at all times.
That's really interesting because we have some aspects of that that are borrowed in America, especially at like JFK's tomb, which has the eternal flame.
Yep, the eternal flame. Yep, this gets translated into a lot of things, like the Vestal flame in Rome.
Yeah,
Very
the
interesting.
Yeah. This concept spreads. And what's very interesting is there are 3 fire temples that are supposedly those flames were a gift directly from Ahura Mazda to the human race, to the
oh,
Zoroastrians.
it's got atheist vibes.
Yeah. These are the 3 great fires. They have been lost to time, and numerous archaeological expeditions have gone into the sands to find them. None have ever found them.
It's very interesting too the parallels with Cherokee culture, which believe roughly the same thing with fires and with the gods having given man the gift of fire.
Yeah, it's almost as if fire was a terrifying force that arose in nature that humanity later realized could become its greatest tool.
No.
No. Of course not. The clearly what happened is that the Zoroastrians got on some sort of magic galley, sailed through the desert across North Africa, and got to the Americas, where they told the Cherokee about their religion. But the Cherokee, being primitives, could not understand it enough to worship it properly. Welcome to hell. That is not what happened. I will personally fight anyone who quotes me on that.
The best part is, I hope that takes off as like a
I-
genuine like pseudoscience theory, and you have to bear
I
that
have to
cross.
fight it till the end of time.
Yes.
No. The Cherokee are their own people with their own religion.
Justin,
Own
that's straight
freaking
out
merits
the
that we
Book
are
of
not going to
Mormon.
discuss in this video. Screw
Justin, that's
anyone who thinks that
Book of Mormon shit.
civilization had to come across the goddamn sea.
For those who maybe aren't archaeologists or have that background, there's a lot of theories that permeate our field that a lot of technologies and sciences have to come from some greater society because man isn't clever enough to develop it themselves, and that independent invention isn't a real thing.
Yeah. Basically, there's a lot of very negative, very harmful pseudoscientific theories that effectively amount to people in Area A are so primitive and so innately unsmart that the only way they could have civilization is if someone from our innately smart land came over and told them about it.
Very racist, very colonial, and that's why.
And that is why this is not what happened with the Cherokee, and it never will be. And I will personally come out and fight anyone who says it is.
All right.
I will personally fight you.
Now, one of the interesting things I think about the Zoroastrians are their burials.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sky burials.
Yes.
Sky burial. Sky burial. Yep. Now, what this is they constructed these circular flat-top towers called Dakma, or Towers of Silence.
And
yeah.
didn't
and
they only really build these in times when they weren't like the dominant religion? Like these were, because this was the way for like to keep other people from burying their dead.
I didn't find anything on that. I just found it as like the traditional burial practice. It's
If
still
somebody
in
else
practice.
can, Verify it later.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's still in practice today, if that helps.
Oh, it is?
It's
In
still,
parts
yeah,
of
it's
That's
still
really
India.
interesting.
yeah,
That's really
it's
interesting.
yeah, yeah, super. And what this amounted to was burial by desiccation.
Mhm.
They would leave their dead out exposed to the elements and let the desert do its work.
aka let other critters and things eat away at you until you're just bones.
Yeah, but also a lot of times, like, this originated in Iran, so letting the moisture be evaporated, letting the flesh be peeled from the bones very naturally. Desert's very good at that. Desert is very good at bleaching you down to bones.
And then basically, once they were just bones, they'd gather up the dead and toss them into lime pit ossuaries. They basically stack up the bones and place them all nice and pretty, and there you go. There's your final resting spot once that pesky little mortal flesh of yours is all gone.
Once
I
all
really
the
like it. I'm really fascinated by this, like, by like the practice itself. I like the religious reasoning behind it too, because there, from what I've read, and again,
Yeah.
someone correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think the belief is uh priests will walk around the body or bodies, depending, if it's a large enough group, and are essentially supposed to chant to like scare the spirit away, because when the spirit's like, wakes up from the body, they don't really retain their memories. At least that's what I've been told. And I can't verify much else, but
yeah,
it's really fascinating if you ever do a deep dive.
yeah, of course, yeah, and that is a common practice throughout a lot of cultures. Is the concept of scaring the soul away so it can't return and find a way back. It's why you always carry a casket out feet first, so that the dead person can't see the home that they lived in and try to stay.
Very bizarre. And then
How bizarre! How bizarre!
these burials and these styles were actually outlawed in Iran in the 1970s after the revolution took place. Pretty much
No.
anything outside of Islam was prohibited and banned in the country. So now a lot of Zoroastrians that practice their faith bury their dead under concrete slabs so they can't be desecrated, basically.
Yeah, basically they skip ahead to the ossuary section and they just put concrete slabs over the burials so that no one can get to them. Because what matters is that the dead's final resting place remains their final resting place.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, sky burials still remain a common Zoroastrian practice in India.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Where it didn't get banned by a massive religious revolution.
But that's
That
where
too, yeah.
I find it very interesting, just the overall impacts that Zoroastrianism has on
Was it
modern culture.
Freddie Mercury? Yeah, wasn't Freddie Mercury Zoroastrian?
He was Parsi, so he was of the people that descended from the Zoroastrians, and his his funeral service was actually performed by a Zoroastrian priest, although I believe his remains were cremated, not buried in the traditional Zoroastrian methodology.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
he had a traditional priest, a Zoroastrian priest at the burial. He didn't have a traditional Zoroastrian burial.
Yeah, so small difference there, but it's very, very interesting. And then the other thing that I personally really like is, if one of the names that we've said a few times on this episode sounds very familiar, it's because Ahura Mazda is the namesake of Mazda, the Japanese automotive and former airline manufacturer, where they made a lot of different machinery and implementations.
They, yeah, the Mazda Corporation decided to name itself after Ahura Mazda. I believe, and I'm not entirely certain of this, I believe it was under an attempt to thinking that the name would give them more reach outside of Japan.
I mean, it's not wrong when you choose a religion that is entirely based outside of your country.
Yeah, but it's not a very well known one, I would think, outside, or at least in the West.
Yeah,
But
well,
maybe elsewhere, I'm wrong.
It did get a bit of popularization in Western societies, particularly Western intellectualism, with being the subject of one of Friedrich Nietzsche's works. Nietzsche is a German philosopher,
Oh.
and
This is 19th century Germany, though. They're okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I
the
know,
19th,
but also,
yeah,
well, not really. They're still imperialist.
yeah, yeah. Well, they stopped being Prussia. That's what mattered.
We could go into a whole other topic about
he-
the abolition of Prussia.
Yeah. And basically, in the 19th century, one of his philosophical works is titled Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And it's him using the context of Zarathustra, Zoroaster, the big Zoroastrianism prophet, to explore and critique the concept of religion.
Mhm. Okay.
And basically the general takeaway from this is positive human action is what matters, more so than what you're worshiping or how you're worshiping or what you proclaim to believe.
I can respect that.
It's what's in your two hands that matter.
That sounds reasonable.
I got a fist in one hand and a fist in the other.
Why'd they crucify him? Because he said, love thy neighbor.
And this work is what gets Zoroastrianism into the cultural milieu and popular imagination of the West, at
So what
least
the hell?
for a time.
Well, then, wait a minute. With that being the message, how the fuck did the magician dude get to, like, let me cause a civil war and destroy everyone else's pantheon?
Because I feel like one is more retrospective, whereas the other one happened at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. With Gaumata the magician here, Gaumata is fighting for the right to be a military dictator
Okay.
and a possible pseudo god king. So
A lot of historical parallels. Oof.
Yeah. So he's out there, and he's taking probably the more extreme militarized approach that you can take to Zoroastrianism. I mean, we see throughout this podcast, I hope we've highlighted, that this religion goes through periods of being generally horrible to the people around it, to being very open and respectful and tolerant. There's various phases of the Zoroastrian outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them are good or kind or beneficial to humanity, especially in the day that they were being done. The more modern version is much more passive and accepting than what it would have been under Gaumata or under the Sasanians. But, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I think that's actually a pretty poetic point for us to wrap up on. That, honestly, I wasn't thinking that's a really good way to end it. You guys got any other final thoughts? Any last things to add?
This is about as far as the work goes. I gotta say, doing these religious ones, it's very interesting, but also very hard because there's a lot of balancing act here of trying not to insult the religion, either through not understanding something properly or through overemphasizing a negative trait.
Yeah, but that is it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know your thoughts down below, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.